Hey everybody, Jen here, Gen X Website Design and Strategy, and welcome to this free training on how to set your blog up in Squarespace. I talk a lot about how blogging is the best thing you can do for your website and your business. That's why I created a course that teaches you how to learn to blog with Squarespace to increase organic website traffic so you can grow your business or your client's business and be a total hero. I'll include a link to that below this video. Blogging builds trust, grows your email list, demonstrates your authority to both your potential clients and Google, and I could go on and on about all the benefits of blogging. But if you don't know how to actually set up your blog in Squarespace, you'll be dead in the water before you even start. So in this free training, I'm going to show you some strategies for setting up your blog in Squarespace to make it easy for people to find what they're looking for, improve engagement with your brand, and spend less time creating blog posts. So let's do it. Okay, so we're going to get started in my generic website wireframe. So if you are logged into your Squarespace website, you are going to go to website and you are going to want this in your main navigation. But until you have it set up just how you like it, you should start in the not late section. That is, if you already have a live website that everybody can see, I recommend starting down here. And then when you have it just how you like it, you can literally just click and drag it up to the main navigation. But we're going to start here for now, and we're going to select the plus sign, and we're going to select blog. And you can choose any of these because you will have the ability to change the layout later. But I'm going to start with this one. And while this is still highlighted, I'm going to type in the name of this page, which is blog. And I recommend you do the same thing. I don't recommend getting cute and clever with the name of your blog. Just call it blog. All right, so now if you want to change the layout, you'll go up to edit and you're going to go over to edit section. And this is where you can change the layout. So right now we have a basic grid blog and it looks like this, or you can choose side by side, which looks like this. Another option is masonry, and I'm going to skip over that for now. I'm also going to skip over single column. I'm going to show you those in a minute. Or you can choose an alternating side by side, okay? Just like that. And you can further customize these by changing the aspect ratio and playing around with all of these settings. But this is not a course in design, so I'm not going to go over that here. This is an example of a masonry blog. When you upload your featured images, they will be displayed here proportional to their actual original size, appearing in a sort of masonry pattern, okay? It looks nice. This is an example of a single column blog. Now, with a single column blog, all of your images are going to be displayed the same size, and they are all going to be horizontally oriented. So if you choose this layout, you are going to want all of your featured images that you put into your blog post settings, which I will show you, are going to have to be horizontally oriented if you want it to look good. Okay, so we're just going to come back over to the grid layout. And I want to show you that the basic grid blog, the side-by-side blog, and the alternating side-by-side blog layouts all have the ability to change the aspect ratio. Whatever you choose, it's going to apply every single time you add a featured image to your blog post settings. This is actually helpful when you have a templatized featured image, like I do. So every single time I create a blog post, I go into Canva, I figure out which color I'm using this week, and I edit it. The way I do it is I put the blog post title right in the image, and I also use it for my page title because when I download this image, I want it to be named the same name as the blog post because file names are searchable. I only use this on my blog overview page. I don't actually use this image in my blog post, but I could. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because if you have a template for your featured image, then instead of having to search and search and search for images every time you write a new blog post, which takes forever, you can literally just open up Canva and edit your template. It's a huge time saver. So like I said, this is not a design course. Play around with these settings. You're smart. This isn't rocket science. You'll be able to figure out what all this stuff means, okay? We'll talk about all of this stuff in a minute. Now, what is important to have on your blog overview page is a heading because you need to tell your visitors what your blog is about. You have to give them a reason to actually want to look at your content. I recommend deciding what your categories are going to be, and that will determine what you put in your heading. Basically, tell people what your blog is about. My blog is about Squarespace website design and website strategy. Then I go into more detail and I tell them how this is going to benefit them. So what you'll do is you'll add a section, and you can use whatever you want and you can make it look as pretty as you want. Do whatever you want here. I'm going to just add a blank section. Okay, so it's going to look something like this. The blankety blank and blankety blank blog. Stop and then fill in the blank with the pain point that you solve and that you want to be known for solving in your business. And start. This is the success your readers will experience by reading your blog. And you can even take it a step further by saying, so you can, and this is who they want to be. I'll give you an example. Stop struggling to get traffic to your Squarespace website and instead learn the tips to attract and engage your ideal clients so you can grow your business. Now, another important thing to add here is an easy way for people to find what they're looking for. I typically add another section, a blank section. And then I go into edit section and I turn off fill screen because I actually want to make this skinny. And then I add a text block and I put my categories here. We're going to come back to this later. Essentially what you're going to do is every single thing that you write is going to fall into either category 1 or category 2. Inside your blog post settings is where you select the category. Once you've actually written blog posts and labeled them with your categories, then your categories will actually exist. And what we're going to do then is we're going to link this text to your categories, to every blog post in that category. But we can't do that yet because you don't actually have any content to link to. So we'll come back to that. Then we're going to add a search bar. We want to give people an easy way to find what they're looking for. So after you add your search bar, you do need to decide which content on your website you want to be searchable. So we're searching a specific page and we're searching the blog. And then under display, you can choose whether you want the dark theme or the light theme. Okay, but we've just added a search box that's going to make it easy for your visitors to find what they're looking for if they're looking for something specific. Another thing you can do after you have a lot of blog posts is add an archive block. Okay, so when you look at this, it looks like a lot of text. Personally, I never like to see a lot of text on a website unless it's a blog post, which is supposed to be a long form content. When people see stuff like this, in my opinion, it's overwhelming. They don't want to have to scroll through all of this to find what they're looking for, okay? I recommend editing this. You're going to choose a little pencil. And this is only after you have a significant number of blog posts or not. You don't even have to put this on your website if you don't want to, but sometimes people do. It completely depends on the type of visitors who are visiting your website and consuming your content. So you know this better than anybody. Okay, so I'm going over to display, and this is apparently an index layout. Other options are list and drop down. Personally, I like the drop down. I like that you can edit this text. So for example, you could say browse by date, and then you can come down here and you could decide how you want this information sorted. You could even say browse by author if you have a bunch of authors writing blog posts and articles on your Squarespace website, or category or tag. And we're going to talk more about categories and tags later. Okay, now if you select show group count, it will not only show you the month, but it will show you how many posts were written during that month, just like that. I like the drop down because it's neat and tidy and organized. And I think that visitors appreciate it. It's going to be important for you to see what it looks like on mobile. Okay, you're probably going to have to tweak this. See, now the blog layout is going to be perfect because it's automatically mobile responsive. But these sections that we just added are not. So you will definitely have to adjust these. All right, now let's head on over to the blog content. When you write your blog posts, the title is automatically going to be assigned an H1 tag. And this is good because Google recognizes H1 tags as a way to communicate to Google and search engines what your blog post is about. So when you're writing your blog post title, you definitely want to include your keyword. One thing that you definitely want to do to save you time is create a blog post template. It was a good idea to name it. blog post template so you don't mix it up with anything else. Some key things to keep in mind with blog posts is that white space is your friend, and also chunking your text. This is a little bit tight. You might be able to add another space in here with a soft return, which is when you hold down Shift and select return at the same time. Now it doesn't look like there are as many words on the page. Of course, it's an optical illusion, but it can actually be easier to read. And also, this text is a little bit small. Keep in mind who your audience is. If they're old like me, you may want to make your text a little bit bigger, but I'm going to just leave this like it is right now. And I will point out that as of right now, this is April 3rd, 2024. Fluid Engine is still not available in blogs, so you are stuck with the classic editor here. When I create a blog post template, I typically include some subheadings too. So while your main heading is automatically tagged H1, you want your subheadings in H2. You don't want to say, oh, I just think that this looks so much prettier. No, if you have a subheading that you want to get noticed or get ranked for, use H2 because search engines and Google will recognize them. And another thing I like to do is to add an image placeholder. I'm going into design and I'm going into card. I think it's important to delete this text. Okay, I've been told that this can wreak havoc when you're trying to get indexed by Google. Squarespace told me that, okay? I have since then heard conflicting information. I like to be super careful, so I just go in and I delete that text. And sometimes when I add a new image, I forget to do that. So if I just keep an image block in here for any images that I might want to add to my blog posts, I don't have to think about remembering to delete that placeholder text. When you use images in your blogs, I'm going to mention this too, using unique images is always better than using stock images. It's better for SEO. But always rename your images before you upload them because file names are searchable. Super, super important when you are adding images to your blog posts to always add alt text. Alt text is searchable. It's great if you can include your keyword in your alt text. So make it applicable to what the image actually is. Some people can't see the images on their screens, but they can see the text, whatever text you put in here. So you have to really think about your alt text. Don't spend too much time thinking about it, but add alt text that's relevant to the image and also relevant to the blog post. I hope that makes sense. In your blog post template, you want to make sure you include your lead generator, and I like to keep mine toward the top. Sometimes people don't read the entire post, and I want to make sure that they see it. So make sure you have at least one lead generator in every single post. And then add something at the bottom with links to related posts to help provide more value to your readers. Including an author profile is recommended because it reinforces your authority, not only with your readers, but with Google. I have a really great blog post on how to create and optimize your author bio for your Squarespace blog. It also how to add some really simple CSS to make it look like this instead of like this. But when you toggle that on, your bio is going to show up down here at the very end of the blog post. As part of your blog post template, I like the idea of having a sidebar. I do have a blog post on how to create a sidebar in Squarespace using a summary block. So this is an inexpensive way to add a sidebar to your Squarespace website. But I'm also going to include a link below this video to the Squarespace Themes Squarespace sidebar plugin. I like having sidebars because I think it's a great way to display anything special that you want people to see and also provide people an easy way to do business with you without coming right out and soliciting their business within the context of your blog post. I just don't like that personally. I think it's a good idea to keep your blog posts extremely generous and free. I really don't like when people say things like, need some help with this? Get in touch, because then it just really feels like, I don't know, I feel like it's needy energy and I don't like it. I can understand that if you're a business who's selling a product, that it might make sense to link to a specific product if you're highlighting that product and the benefits of that product to the extent that you're explaining how it will solve your customer's pain point. Just be careful not to get too salesy, I guess, is all I'm saying. I think that sidebars are a good thing to have, and I can even spruce mine up a little bit. But if you want to, check out this blog post and the tutorial, and you can create a sidebar for yourself for free. Okay, now we're going to talk about blog post settings. You have settings for your individual blog posts, and then you have settings for your blog collection. We'll start out by talking about the individual blog post settings. So for every blog post, you're going to open up the settings. When you go into the individual blog post settings, this is where you're going to upload your featured image. This is the image that's going to appear on the blog overview page. If you've templatized your featured images like I have, this is going to get a whole lot easier. I do recommend whatever image you use, even if you're using a stock image, rename it before you upload it. And I typically give it the same name as my blog post. So you're going to upload that right here. The next step is very important. You need to rename the post URL. And when you duplicate your blog post template, it's going to also duplicate the URL and then attach a bunch of random letters and numbers after it. So you have to go in and rename it. I recommend using a URL between 3 and 6 words and try to include your keyword. Make sure that your blog post URL is short and snappy and actually aligns with the content of the blog post. This is going to help with your SEO. This is also where you're going to put your excerpt. I literally just copy and paste the SEO description here because I'm always looking for ways to save time in my business. And if I've done a good job with my SEO description, it'll probably make a really good excerpt. And even though I don't personally display my excerpt on my blog overview page, it's still searchable. So put something in here. So this is the content tab. When you are ready to create a new blog post, this is how you duplicate your blog post template. You literally just select duplicate. Okay, heading over to the options tab. Your first option is to decide whether this is a draft, needs review, if it's published, or if you want to schedule it for some time in the future. And a note about publishing, you can publish this retroactively. You do not need to publish this today. You can publish this on any date that you choose, whether that be today or retroactively. Or you can schedule it for some time in the future, which is really helpful when you get ahead on your blogging. Down here is where you will choose the date, and you just click and drag this to choose the time. And for some reason, Squarespace has chosen March 2019 for all of its dummy blog posts. I don't know why. Also in the options tab is where you're going to choose your tags and categories. You can think of this like a menu. So category might be appetizers, entrees, desserts, beverages. And then tags would be, for example, in the appetizers category, something like nachos or buffalo wings. And in the entrees category, it might be prime rib. And in the desserts category, it might be creme brulee or chocolate lava cake. Okay, so that's how I think of tags. I think this is especially important if you're selling products. For me, the way I use tags, I'm a little bit more lenient. I think of tags for my blog and a sort of content that I create in terms of what people might actually be typing into the search bar. So I use lots of tags, but you certainly don't have to. This is really going to be dependent on how you want to organize your blog and what kind of content you're actually writing about. Categories are going to be the categories that we talked about previously. You want to limit to no more than 3 because, guys, you can't talk about everything. You want to be really specific about what you choose for categories. They need to highlight you as an expert at what you do and align with your products and services. It doesn't do you any good to write about content that doesn't demonstrate your ability in your business to solve your target audience's pain point. So even if there's something that your target audience may as a whole find value in, unless it's something that you offer, unless it's something that aligns with your products and services, don't write about it. So choose your categories, no more than 3. And when you add a category, you're going to type in your category and type a comma, and that's going to be what creates your category. I also recommend that when you write a blog post, to limit it to one category. I don't really recommend writing a blog post that falls into all three categories, only because that means you're getting a little too broad in your blog post. I'll admit, you do obviously have to use your judgment here. Everyone is different, okay? This isn't a one-size-fits-all strategy. I talk about Squarespace web design and strategy, but if you look here, you'll see I have Squarespace, website strategy, and blogging. Blogging really is part of website strategy, but because I have so many blog posts that talk about blogging, I've created this category too. So I used my judgment here, and that's what I've decided to do. I hope that is helpful and not confusing to you guys. You can also decide if you want to enable comments so that people can actually leave comments on your blog. Featured post is another option that I'm not going to talk about here because I have another blog post where I talk about this in more detail. Customize your Squarespace blog page layout with summary blocks. Now we're going to go to the SEO tab. In this tab, you can choose to override the blog post title. Right now, this is how this blog post is going to appear in Google searches. If you wanted to say something different here, you can type it in here, just like that. But you can see that your website, the name of your website, is going to appear at the tail end of this. And I'm going to show you how to remove this because you want your SEO title to be between 50 and 60 characters. And if the name of your website is tacked on to the end of this, it's going to be too long. Plus, it's just not necessary. So I'm going to show you in a minute how to remove this. And then this is where you're going to add your SEO description. Your SEO description should be between 150 and 160 characters and include your keyword. And by the way, this includes spaces. And as I mentioned before, I literally just copy this and paste it into my excerpt. I use wordcounter.net to help me with my word count for everything, my H1 titles, my SEO descriptions, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're using a program like Word, you can always use that, but this is an option too. Now let's look at the social image tab. This is where you can upload a social sharing image that will display whenever this URL is shared, like to social media. Now, this is something that you can templatize too. If you decide to do that, I've determined that 1200 pixels by 630 pixels is the size that works. That's the size that I use. This is my template. This just makes it a lot easier. Instead of having to reinvent the wheel every time you write a blog post, you can just go to your template, change the text here, and download it, and then add it to your blog post right here. This is what it looks like. So this is where you upload it, and this is going to show you how this is actually going to be displayed when it is shared. Not only does it show the image, but it also shows you what the text is going to read like. I do recommend doing this because you want to have control over what this looks like when it is shared. In the Share tab, the only thing I do is I enable this. So in order for this to work, you need to be connected to Google Search Console. But Squarespace will automatically prompt you to connect your Google Search Console. So that's pretty easy. And then you can just push this to Google Search Console. So essentially this means that it's supposed to request indexing right away. But I'm going to tell you, I manually request indexing every single time I publish a blog post. I think it's important, and I'll include a link to a blog post that I wrote about that below this video. And I don't use the location tab at all, nor do I know anyone else who's using the location tab. So I'm afraid I don't have anything to offer on that. Okay, now let's talk about the blog settings. So these are the universal blog settings. This is where you can decide how many posts you actually want to show up on your blog overview page. You can have up to 20. On the SEO tab, you can see it automatically copied this over as the SEO title because this was the design that I chose. Just delete it. And then this is where you're going to write your SEO description. Write a really good SEO description that describes your blog. Make it between 150 and 160 characters and include your keyword. Make sure you tell people what your blog is about because your SEO description needs to align with the actual content. And then you have options down here to hide things from search results. But if you're blogging for business, you're not going to want to toggle any of those. Same thing with the social image. It's going to be just like adding a social image for any other page on your website. You want to have control over this. So you are going to want to add your own social sharing image. I'm going to skip feeds because if I'm being honest, I don't use any of these. And I'm going to head on over to advanced. So this is where you can manage your categories and tags. Anytime you create a category or a tag, they're going to be added to your list. If you decide that you want to edit a category or tag, like maybe you just want to change the way you've worded it, you just check the box and select edit, and you can change the name right here. And if you select save, every place where you've used this category is going to automatically be updated to the new name. The same is true for tags. So now that we have actually created our categories, we can come back down here. We're going to highlight this text and we're going to add a link. And you're going to see that down here, your categories show up. So I'm going to link this to category 1, and then I'm going to link this text right here to category 2. Now I'm going to save this. Now when my visitor selects category 1, all of the blog posts in category 1 are going to be displayed. And same with category 2, you get it. So now we're coming back down to our overview section. When I select edit section, you guys can play around with the design as much as you want. It's pretty straightforward. But down here is where you're going to decide what you want to have actually show up. So this is where you're going to decide if you want your excerpt to show up. I literally just copy and paste the SEO description here. Oh, I spelled paste wrong. Or if you want to hide it, whether or not you want the read more link or not, more on spacing you can figure out. And then if you want any primary meta content or secondary meta content. So you can decide what you actually want to show up here as the primary metadata, meaning it's going to be the first thing that shows up. So you want the categories, the date, maybe the author, or maybe you don't want anything. Now, if you want the secondary metadata to also show up, that's going to show next. So it's going to show second, okay? It's not rocket science. So let's say we want the date to show up, okay? So that's what it's going to look like. The delimiter style is going to be what this is. Right now, it's a bullet. You could have a pipe, a dash, you get it, okay? Or maybe just a space. You're going to notice on mine that I don't actually have the title because I put the title right in my template. So I think it would look kind of silly if I had the title here and here. What I've done is I added a little CSS to remove that title. To add that CSS, you are going to head into Website Tools, Custom CSS, and you're going to paste the code below this video right here. Then you're going to need the Squarespace block identifier installed as a Chrome extension. I'll leave that link too. And when you select this, you want to find the section ID, okay? So that's this right here. When you click on here, it automatically copies to the clipboard. Highlight all of this text and paste it. See, now the title just went away. Okay, now one final thing to tidy up your blog. We're going to remove your website title from the SEO descriptions. This is how you do it. We're going to go all the way back to the main dashboard and select settings. And then we're going into marketing and SEO appearance. Then you want to select items. Items are things like galleries, your blog, and also products. So you have to keep in mind that when you do this, it's going to affect any place on your website where you have those collections. You're going to delete this and select save. Now, when you come back over to your settings and you select SEO, you can see that the title of your website is now gone. Okay, the very last thing that I want to point out is that if you are blogging with Squarespace, you need the SEO Space plugin. This is a no-brainer. They do have a free plan you can start out with, but I can almost guarantee you that after you use the free plan for a little bit, you're going to want to upgrade it to the paid plan because it's not expensive and it's worth its weight in virtual gold. Now, after you install the extension, you'll have this little check box down here. And when you click on it, it's going to load. And you can run a scan. Now you can scan with a keyword or you can just run a basic scan. And for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to run a basic scan so I can give you a very short demonstration. Okay, well, I'm pretty happy to see that I have a score of 100%. The SEO Space plugin basically lets you know what you've done right and what you haven't done right. I'm not going to get into the weeds on this. Instead, I'm going to include a link below this video to actually check out the SEO Space plugin. Yes, it is an affiliate link because I strongly endorse this product and I urge you to check this out. This plugin has been a game changer for me personally. You don't need to know anything about SEO to use it, but if you want to learn about SEO, there are a ton of resources available to you with the plugin. Okay, you guys, I hope you found this free training helpful. In my opinion, this is the best free training for setting up your Squarespace blog. This training is actually going to set you up for success and help you blog the right way for your business and for your website and even for your clients' websites. So if you haven't already, head on over to my website to learn even more about blogging with Squarespace.